I am happy to have Automotive Seminars as a sponsor for the show. Now, if you're not familiar, Automotive Seminars is a diagnostic technician training company. They've got a website that there'll be a link to in the show notes. And what they offer is top-notch training to technicians like us in the field. I've been taking their training courses for years and have got a ton of benefit out of it. They've got top-notch instructors, John Thornton, Scott Shotton, Scott Manna, and every other month they've got a 2-night course that you can sign up for. Join in, ask questions, and afterwards, you've paid for the course, you can access a recorded version whenever you want. You can rewatch the class 2 years later in case you wanted some details on it, and that is a fantastic feature. So make sure to check out the website to see what courses they have available and what's coming up in the future. This podcast is brought to you by Jarhead Diagnostics. Jarhead Diagnostics manufactures in-house diagnostic equipment and storage solutions, as well as distributes for companies like Pico, ATS, and TopDon. One of my favorite tools that I've bought from Brandon and Jarhead Diag is the case for the U-scope. If you don't have a U-scope, you probably should, but if you have one, you got to get one of these 3D printed cases, has a magnet on it, has a full-size BNC lead that you can connect to, and it gets rid of the weak point of that scope, which is the mini BNC connection, which is pretty fragile. This case makes this thing nice and secure and makes it an even better tool than it was. So check out jarheaddiag.com. The link is in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by L1 Automotive Training and Keith Perkins. If you're looking for education on module programming, J2534, EEPROM work, key and immobilizer, electrical diagnostics, or drivability diagnostics, Keith has a website, l1training.com, that's got over 60 hours of training videos on all those subjects and more. When I first started out doing mobile, I utilized Keith's videos on module programming in J2534 in order to get my head wrapped around what I would need for the tooling, the computers, the software setups, what kind of obstacles I would be up against when I'm out there programming modules on cars. And it was a huge benefit to me. And I continue to use the training videos that he has on his website. So I strongly recommend checking out l1training.com. We have got Auto Rescue Tools and Isaac Rodell as a sponsor for this podcast. Hey guys, if you're looking for programming laptops, you want the laptop set up ready to go for programming control modules on vehicles, you need key cutting equipment, you need diagnostic tools, Isaac is your guy. Has all that stuff available for purchase, and the support that he offers along with the purchase has been outstanding. I bought some stuff from him in the past. I got my Dolphin key cutting tool from him several years back. And again, the support has been phenomenal. Helped me out along the way with anything additional I needed to make it work for me. Also, for the month of June 2023, they've got Autel updates for sale. So make sure to check that out as well. Again, that's autorescuetools.com. The link will be in the show notes. Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? This is the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping. I will be your host today. On the show today, I have a special guest joining me. He's been on the show a couple times before, so you should be familiar with Tomi Oliva, trained by Tex. Tommy's going to join me today to talk all about keys. The last time he was on the podcast, we talked programming, and we did touch on keys a little bit and LSID and stuff like this. But today we're really going to dive into what you would need
maybe why you would need it, but also what you're going to need in order to cut and program keys to vehicles as you service them. And of course, we're running into this more and more. Even if you don't cut the keys, you have to deal with programming keys to some sort of module at some point or another. Even if you're just replacing something like the engine control computer, you're dealing with reprogramming keys in certain circumstances. So it benefits us as technicians to have knowledge, to know what's coming. When you go into a service, am I going to have to call somebody into the shop, a locksmith or a mobile programmer, to do this? Or can I purchase some equipment and do it all in-house, or increase my abilities so that I can offer services to other shops in the area? It's another possibility. So there's a lot of potential here, and I see the need for it growing as time goes on. So I'm excited to get into this interview with Tomi. Let's jump right in.
All right. What's going on, Tomi?
What's up, my dude?
Not much. Just staying warm in the Arctic tundra up here,
You know what, man? I complain a lot, bro, but man, I know you guys get it colder than we do, but holy crap, man, it's cold.
Yeah, it's chilly. It's freaking.
Take this weather back, please, sir, because I am not interested, homie. I'm a tropical peoples.
Yeah, it sure helps with the cars braking all the time, though. So
that's for sure.
Huge influx this week of everything.
Yeah, no, that's definitely
broken.
Either it's too hot or too cold, and cars just do not like either of them.
Yeah, that's right. They need that perfect 70-degree weather. I don't know what state you live in for that, but
it's California.
I gotta imagine they still break there too. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, true. Very, very true, sir.
What's your puppy's name?
Chubbies.
Chubbies.
Hey, what's up, Chubs? So, he wants to be a part of the podcast today.
He wants to learn about keys.
Yeah, man. Actually, he wants some of my snacks that I had.
Of course. That's why I close the door to the room when I record, because I got 3 dogs and they'd be all over me.
Bro, you see this little dog, man? He has the attitude of a pit, dude. He won't stop. He won't shut up until I pick him up.
That's how most of the little dogs are. Is they're dominant. They're like, I'm tougher than you. I don't care if you're twice my size.
Our next door neighbor lady has a mutt, and she it's the sweetest thing ever. And I tried to get them to play one day, and this punk bit her.
Well, let's talk about some keys.
Yes, sir.
I locked myself out of my van. What do I do? Who do I call?
You call a locksmith or use the universal key. A hammer.
Yeah, break the window. So, I got a little Ford Transit Connect, and it's got the
Tibby keys.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like a Jaguar. I always considered a Jaguar style key, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I bought the van, I only got 1 key. And of course I want a spare because I'm going to lock my keys in there at some point or another, or lose something. It's just the way it goes. And I was looking what it costs to cut one of those keys, and it's not cheap. You can't just take this thing to the hardware store because it's a special style. So I'm a really cheap person when it comes to my own stuff. So I ordered a key. You can get a blank for, $6-7. And I looked up the profile of the key and like how it was cut and stuff. And yeah, the tools to cut it, I saw what was out there, but I actually took a file and I filed down this blank to match my key. And it works. It opens the door. And so I have a spare.
That's great, man.
That's not what I'm suggesting to people that are listening to the podcast, but that's what
how do we let's remedy your situation, man.
Okay. Yeah, what do we do?
Well, I mean, I can speak on my own experience, man. I don't want to, how can I put this? There right now in the industry, there's kind of like this little, I call it a divide. between locksmiths and VSPs, vehicle service professionals. I feel that it's just an evolution of, the vehicle. Like, security systems and mobilizer systems are now interfering with the way we do our job. So it's adapt or die. And this is actually one of the issues I've had with locksmiths is because they're very tight-lipped about, this information. They're very uptight about sharing it. But I feel like just like we need to adapt and survive, they need to do the same. I know a lot of locksmiths that they help me with the locks, like the actual mechanical locksmithing part of the industry, but I always help them with the programming side of things. And I think that's where my natural progression as a diag tech has led me to get into keys. It just makes sense. I mean, like, I'll give you an example. What do you charge for diag? Let's say a typical, let's say a regular diag. Let's say you diag something in 30 minutes. What's your fee?
Yeah.
GM.
So if I'm going out to a shop to do it, I'm driving to them, it's going to be $120 for a diagnosis. Mm-hmm. If I hit an hour, things will change, but that's my flat fee for coming out, whether it's a fuse or.
Gotcha. All right. So perfect example. Later model express fans, right? You went and you diagnosed the vehicle theft deterrent module. That's causing the vehicle not to start. Boom. Okay, you made $120. Okay, well, now not only did you diagnosed it, you diagnosed the back component that needs to be programmed. What do you charge for programming?
Depends on the vehicle.
Well, the same vehicle. We're working on one vehicle. We're working on a 2014 Chevrolet Express.
Okay, it's a Chevy. It's what am I doing for GM right now? That's $140 for a programming event on one of those.
Cool. All right, so now you go back, right? You hook up your pass through SPS, you log in, you pay your stupid $40, boom, you're done. Okay, cool. Hey man, car doesn't start. Oops. Oh, snaps. There's a code in the engine saying key not learned. Huh. But we have a key. Let me read some service information. Oh, snap. When doing a VTD module, you need a new key. Oh man, Mr. Shop, I need a key. Oh, where do I get one? Oh, well, now you have to go to the dealer, and if you didn't put it in learn mode, you have to come back and learn the key. So now you have to make an extra trip. But now you get into locksmithing. Oh yeah, we need a key. Here it's, whatever. Me, for example, I take that as an example because it kind of just happened to me. The difference is I knew I needed a key. So I already forewarned the customer that, you need a key, it's going to be, X amount of dollars more. Everybody's market's different. My market is actually pretty bad when it comes to keys. We have a lot of unlicensed locksmiths. We have a lot of, we call the fly-by-nighter type doing, keys for 40, 50, 60 bucks. So it's really hard to compete, but I market to the shops who know me. And so I, OEM keys, but there's really good profit in keys, man. I mean, you charge for the cut. Me, for example, I don't charge, if I'm doing it there, I don't charge for a second programming. I roll that into how much I mark up my key, which is pretty substantial.
Okay.
Because, if it's a, B111 typical PK Circle Plus key for GM, you could buy for like $6 for an OEM key. Sell it for like $80 or whatever. So that's pretty good profit for 5-6 minutes of extra cutting the key.
Right. And that's been part of my challenge is I try to do my legwork ahead of time to find out, am I going to need new keys or multiple keys in order to finish this programming? If it's PCM.
Let's be real here. How many times do you actually, sit there and look at service information when you're in the middle of a busy day? I mean, it's happened to me before when I show up and especially Ford. It's like I've actually conditioned my customers to expect a second key.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know. There's some Transit that require them. There's some Fords some F-150s that require it. There's some Econolines that don't require it. Which one's which? I don't know. You know, I mean,
Right.
Because service information is wrong. I've proven that it's not reliable. You go into All Data, you go into BCM, and there'll be there's like a couple of right instructions, but they're just generic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's been my issue. I don't know about you, but I've had that issue with Fords that some of them require 2 keys, some don't, and it's not. There's no really set. It's just experience teaches you which ones needed, which ones don't.
Exactly. Yeah. Where does the security live? Which modules it in? And I for that has depended on which one you need 2 keys and which one you don't. But for me, I don't cut keys or anything yet. I'm looking to get into it. I feel like it's, an opportunity for me to, instead of telling them, go get this key, get it cut, call me, I'll come back, we'll program it in. I could just cut the key, program it, and be done. Or even key fobs in some cases, like Ford BCMs. It'd be nice if I just had the fobs in my van. So that's kind of the way I'm looking to gear up to be just ready for that, because like you said, it's just part of our job now.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Okay. I was like, what'd I do?
No, my internet sucks. I have CenturyLink and they hate me or something. So that happens.
You're good now?
I think we're good now. All right. Where'd you lose me?
I said, the last thing I said was you need LSID to program like a steering column module on something. And then I just seen your face. You froze.
I was really surprised.
Yeah, you were. I almost took a picture.
Yeah, the LSID is a whole nother side to it where you have to be prepared for that, and the cost of purchasing the LSID. Hopefully you have insurance if you're doing this as your own business. Of course, that's an expense, but then manufacturers want money for the key tokens or the PIN codes or whatever they call it for that specific brand. So of course that's an added cost, but you can build that into the job. But it's just another thing you want to be prepared for when you're going into this.
Oh no, definitely, man. You really don't realize how much of its own art form is locksmithing, man. There's a lot that goes wrong, man, that you just don't have any idea about. And like I said, it was for me, it was challenging because it was really hard to find support for even like what the numbers are, blade numbers, chip numbers. It's definitely a whole different ballgame. And now when you're talking about like the mechanical aspect, it's really, really interesting. Like I ended up buying a car cheap just to practice on it. This young lady lost her key for a 2001 Toyota Sienna. And that's it's a pretty expensive job. You have to pull the ECM, you have to versionize it, and then create a new key. So when you do that, you have to, first of all, you have to get the lock code. So on this particular model, I did a little bit of research beforehand. And I said, I gave the lady a price, and I actually gave her somewhat of a cheaper price because I really wanted to do it. I had never had a chance to do it, and all keys lost on a pre-OBD, like pre-TrekStream Toyota vehicle. So it was I spent half a day on this thing because it was just one roadblock after the other. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed a spot. So she was just like, oh, that's a lot of money. I'm like, well, why don't you let me know what you want to do? And I guess she shopped around and saw that I actually was cheaper, but it was still more than she wanted to spend. So she said she was just going to junk it. And I said, well, I'll give you a scrap price for the car right now. So I didn't see it, for the practice. And then I'll scrap this thing. I don't care. So she agreed, and I had it towed to the shop, and I ended up, I have a buddy named Hector out in California who, I've taught some programming things to. I've done programming for him remote, and I've taught him a few things. And he's a pretty smart locksmith. So he's helped me. Like, he's awesome. Like, he'll stop and he'll help me out. And he kind of babied me through the process. And then my other buddy, Pedro de la Torre, actually, he helped me, it's called virginizing the ECM. He helped me to do that part. But I never, like I said, I've never done it before. I've copied and pasted those Toyota modules that like the immobilizer information. I've done that with no problems. So it was fun, but what I ended up doing was I took the door jam apart. I had to decode the tumbler. Once I did that, I got the cut code, but I had a little bit of technical difficulties with my machine. I finally got the key right, got the ignition to start, and then the last part was yanking the PCM, the ignition to turn. I'm sorry, I didn't get to start. Once I got the ignition to turn, took the PCM out, and I actually used a super chip to make a key because I didn't have that. I didn't have that correct key. So it was a nice, lengthy process, but it was very educational.
Yeah, no kidding. So for I got a couple questions on that. For the actual PCM part, is that something where you're going onto the board on an EEPROM, or are you taking an EEPROM off the board? Or
well, on this one, I read it. It's called in circuit.
Okay.
So I just went in circuit. I read the I forget the chip. It's the IC900 chip. It's the IC900 chip.
Okay.
You read it, and there's some information out there in terms of what you're looking for. And basically, you're going into the hex, and you're just rewriting.
What tool are you using to connect to that EEPROM?
That one I use the IM608.
Okay.
That one I use that one. That one's I don't recommend. I don't recommend that one too much for a lot of people because it does have its issues. You just have to have redundancies in place. If you're new, I think there's better equipment out there to handle that job. The auto, when it comes to reading in circuit, like on the board, it can cause you some issues if you don't know the exact way of doing it.
Okay. Well, that's funny you say that. So I had a 07 Sienna recently where the shop replaced the PCM with obviously a used one. The existing vehicle had a metal blade key, no anti-theft equipped on the actual vehicle. The PCM that they replaced it with had anti-theft, the van it came out of. So of course it's not going to start. And they called me to program it. That was what I was called in to do. And I think on that one, outside of the anti-theft, it's just right in the VIN. But I realized quickly that this is a metal blade key. Obviously, there's no anti-theft here. So I have the IM 508, and then I have the XP 400. And I tried reading it on the EEPROM. I found the EEPROM with some help from people in Facebook, and I could not read it in circuit. And maybe I was doing something wrong, but I actually had to desolder it from the board, put it into that tool, and then I was able to read it, clear it, and copy out the data from the other one, which was pretty straightforward at that point. But yeah, I had to take that EEPROM off the board, which is that's a lot of work when you get into that point.
What chip family was it?
Boy, 93 something 56. I could be off on those numbers. 56? I think so.
I can read that one in circuit, man. Did you clean it off?
Probably not. Not well enough, maybe I should say.
That's very possible. That happens.
Okay. Well, hey,
just give me a call.
I'm going to that class at the end of this in a couple of weeks here. And,
nice. Yeah, I won't be able to make it, but say hi to Pedro for me.
Yeah, I will. I'm just learning on this stuff, so I'm excited to go actually get some real training, and maybe that's a good question for, the EEPROM stuff's almost a separate topic, but even on the locksmith stuff, like you were saying, where do you go to learn this stuff? It's kind of tough to find information, isn't it?
It is, man. I'm very adventurous, man, but I'm adventurous with some guys. Like I don't necessarily enjoy the frustration that comes with not knowing something. And I'm very stubborn and I won't let up. So that's what's gotten me to where I'm at. But it's also, during the time, it's like I still own a shop. I still, still have, my day-to-day things to do. So it's a little bit more difficult to be, to be wasting time researching and stuff. So classes definitely help, man. And I recommend, I don't recommend the E-Prom classes. They're just not for everybody, because not a lot of us have that mentality. Like for example, other mobile guys would have been like, well, just get the right one and I'll be back.
Yeah.
Right. But what's going to happen when they stop making these components?
Sure.
There's going to be a market for it.
Yep.
There's going to be a market for this. I actually, I had my first successful PCM repair. I reflowed a PCM on a 2004 RAV4.
Okay.
I did some research and I found some great articles, some great documents stating what goes wrong. And yeah, I found the transistors that had the cold solder joints that were cracking, and I basically reflowed them, all of them.
Yeah,
and they worked.
It's cool stuff to get in there at the board level and start looking at that stuff and actually finding something. Yeah, it is, and that is it is a whole nother conversation, a whole other episode, is the EEPROM board level of stuff. But man, do I find it interesting. And if you're successful in some way, if you crack something open and you make something work, boy, that's a cool feeling.
It's nice, but it even though it's a conversation, it's definitely something that I feel that most of us, even if we have no interest in, I feel like we should know some basic EEPROM skills if you want to deal with, computers are all, at the end of the day, it's all what you want to do. If you want to hang parts, knock yourself out. But if you're in the electrical aspects of it, because me, it's always been like the why these keys don't work, why this works, why this doesn't work. It's always been the why for me. And I got into, but that wasn't really why I got into keys. I got into keys for what I just told you. I mean, $120 for Diag, $140 for programming. That's $260. And then another, let's say 80, maybe even $100 you can get for the key cutting and program per se. That's an extra $80-$100 in your pocket. And you're there. There's just nothing, there's no coming back. You made your money and you're on to the next one. Shop has his customer back on the road. Everybody wins. I know there's still a lot of division between a lot of locksmiths and auto service techs, but again, I feel like a lot of locksmiths need to learn how to do more diag, a little more programming. I've gone to many shops, and I'm not calling anybody out. I'm not calling out locksmiths or service professionals, because there are people that I consider hacks or not informed in every aspect of our industry. How many calipers how many times did you get a car that, we did our own brakes, we installed our own calipers, can you just bleed it out and the calipers are installed on the wrong side? How many times have you seen that?
Yep.
So I'm not picking on any locksmiths, but 80% of the times when I go get a call to the shop and be like, a locksmith said I need a computer, and I get out there, it's a comm issue.
Sure.
And I've gained customers like that, even for keys. Like I have a lot of shops that will call me for keys because they trust me, because I'll go out there and I can tell them, hey man, this is a comm issue. Hey man, you have another problem here. Hey man, this car isn't immobilized. Do you want me to continue? You want me to diagnose it, or do you still want to keep? So yeah, that's a great benefit. Like it's actually pretty. It's pretty cool to me that I can actually work on another facet of the industry, and I feel like vehicle service pros are going to be very, very important in the next decade of automotive repair. Yeah,
I mean, so many different modules. You need that LSID login for a lot of stuff now, and right. So that's bringing us into all kinds of different things that where it wasn't needed before. But to have that multifaceted approach to a vehicle where, like you said, you could be called in for something, you're a specialist in one area, but hey, there's an issue unrelated and you can now tackle that. I mean, that's, I guess, for mobile technicians, that just makes you so valuable to be able to jump into another mode. I go from programming to diagnostics, and I can still take care of that issue. That's huge if you know multiple areas of the vehicle. If you don't consider one area of the vehicle outside of your realm, you're going to be so much more valuable, even as just a normal tech in a shop too. If you're not doing mobile work, you're just a normal tech in a shop, you can just switch gears and figure out this problem instead of calling somebody else in. That's worth it to spend the time there to learn all that stuff.
No, definitely, man. It's not as bad as it used to be to get into the industry. It was when vehicles started becoming immobilized with transponder frequencies, and they started figuring out how to lock you out via pin codes, etc. Those tools back in the day were not cheap, man. So it was expensive to be a locksmith. Honestly, I feel like you can get started being a locksmith for, like, I'd say under 10 grand easily. But I will say this, man, there's obviously, at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. Every tool, and it's a scan tool. There's very expensive scan tools I won't name that may not have functions as one, but processes and things are streamlined. There's, for example, like, well, I mean, I guess I will name them. You could take like me, for example. I don't hate scan tools. I just feel like every scan tool has its application. I hate that Snap-on is so overpriced, but I love my Veris Edge. It's one of my favorite scan tools. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's such a great tool. It's a powerful tool. I may not have the functions that I want from, like, let's say the cheaper launch, an auto.
Mm-hmm.
But when I have that drivability problem kicking my butt, man, that Snap-on's right there. And that's, to me, it's invaluable. I mean, just the way it organizes pins, the way I can play them back, the way I can graph data. I mean, it's you don't need a Veris Edge, but it's, the scope is very competent if you know how to use it. It's just a great tool. I like it. I really like it a lot. It's not my go-to, but it's my go-to for drivability. And I feel like key machines are the same. You don't have to you don't have to spend a lot of money on a key machine, but the more you spend, the easier your life is. So, I mean, keep that in mind. Like, I bought Isaac's starter kit, which came with key DIY, X-Works remotes, X-Works prox keys, my own like 10 of the most popular blades, my key head. So basically, VVDI super chips. For those who don't know, VVDI X-Works is a company that makes a lot of locksmithing tools.
Okay.
VVDI is just one of their brands. So super chips are basically, you can take this chip and it emulates a lot of different frequencies. You can basically, and then you can rewrite them. So, even let's say, for example, if you don't want to get into keys, you can they're great to have. As long as you have some blades, you can make your own key, and you can just program it to as many cars as you want. You can go from a Toyota to a Ford to a Chevy, change the blade. I mean, it's a really good resource. They're really good to have.
Okay.
I mean, I even programmed a couple, Fords before I did the locksmithing. I had some super chips. I would just sell them to the customer. Like, hey, I got to use this. It's $30, whatever.
So I want to go back to, in case anyone's not familiar with Isaac, can you just give me the rundown on him? I feel like anywhere you go on Facebook, someone's recommending him.
He knows my homie Isaac guy, because he has good support, and he has a network of support as well. And he's also a technician, so
okay.
He gets it. But again, at the end of the day, it's like he sells the tools, he supports them as best he can. But I also feel like it's again, you get what you pay for. And there's pros and cons to everything. But the two entry level cutters that I have in mind. I have a Dolphin.
Okay.
An X-Horse Dolphin, and then there's a Mini Condor. Condor Mini, one of those two. I really forget what it's called, but it's like the second. It's a step above that one. Pros and cons. The Dolphin has a battery. Take that little mofo everywhere. The cons to that one is you need to have another device interface. So, like your cell phone, you can use your cell phone to operate the device. Some people don't mind. I don't like it too much. That's just one more thing I have to worry about. Like, if my phone charged, what if it died? Now I got to charge. You know, like it's you know how it is when you're in the field, man. Sometimes you just want to go.
Yep.
The other con is Instacode doesn't work for it. Doesn't decode cut numbers. Like, you know, for example, when you get a cut code from like, you know, from LS or from a D1 form, it won't decode it.
Okay.
Yeah. So you need to either have Instacode or, you know, a buddy with a better machine can do it for you and get you the biting.
Instacode is just like an application, or what?
Correct. It's just a program that'll just it does more than that, obviously, but that's what you're using to generate the I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, the biting number of the key.
Sure.
So the Condor does that, but the Condor does not have a battery.
Okay, so you got to have an inverter in your van and all
Correct.
that stuff.
You have an inverter and you mount it or whatever. But the Dolphin is so portable. I've never used a Condor. Like I said, my Dolphin is the one I've used. It took me a couple dozen keys to get that thing tuned in. The biggest disadvantage of both of those machines is the duplication process. Once you dial it in, it's fine. But it is there's nothing like the old-fashioned side cutters for those keys, like the machine that has a little wheel on it. So there's nothing really like those keys to copy to do an actual duplication.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is it easier to copy a key or to cut one from scratch from a code, or does it make a difference?
It doesn't make a difference. I will say this: my Dolphin, the high security keys have all been excellent. But for some reason, I've had a lot of difficulty with the regulars, double-sided keys.
What is a high security key? How would you define that?
High security keys, that's what I call them, the high security keys, but they're basically they call them, a lot of people call them laser cut keys.
Is that what the cut down the middle of the key? Correct. Where it's got like a valley in the blade? Correct.
Those I call high security keys.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that Dolphin tool, that'll do both that.
It does both. It does both. Right. But like I said, I had to, when you get yours, you'll see what I'm talking about. You're going to have to really dial her in.
Okay.
And it took me a couple keys to figure out how to get her just right.
Yeah, I suppose it's like anything else. You gotta try a few times before you get it down. Yeah,
like I said, there's nothing to do about it. I mean, I know some guys that had them, they didn't have to do anything. Mine's I had to dial her in to get her right and she does take a few minutes to cut a key. It's not as quickly as a side cutter and stuff. So there's definitely there are pros and cons when it comes to the keys. And now you're talking about if you want like a Gymkhana or a Triton, some of the big boys. I think Ilco makes one. I mean, there's is it Ilco? Yeah, I think it's Ilco. One of the key companies makes their own machine, but they're like in the $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 range.
So it's going to depend on the volume that you're actually you're cutting.
Right.
How about the keys themselves? I know you mentioned the super chip thing, but I mean, I suppose you just probably stock the brands you mostly work on, what you normally see, but where do you order keys from?
Well, in that starter kit that I got from Isaac, it came with the heads. They're just plastic heads that fit the super chip in them, and then you smack a blade in it and you have a key.
Okay. That's
how I started, because I know my market and I know people are cheap, because of how diluted my market is. So I started with that, and but as kind of time progressed a little bit, I started noticing what I did need. And honestly, one of the best sources for keys that I've seen is ILM Auto out of Wilmington. They can get you keys very quickly. There's a bunch of places here close to me. It's called Midwest Keyless. They have a lot of great pricing on keys, on OEM keys. American Key Supply, International Key Supply. Actually, I got my IM from International Key Supply.
Okay.
So those are the Transponder Island. Yellow Key Supply is okay from what I've heard. I've never ordered from them. But those are mainly where I get my keys from: ILM, American Key Supply, Midwest Key Supply. Those are my top 3 choices.
One of the things that I've run into, because obviously I don't supply the keys myself yet, I'm working towards that, but I'll go to a shop where they purchase the key or they ordered a key, usually off eBay or Amazon or something. And boy, it looks exactly the same as the other key or the key that's supposed to be on that vehicle, but it does not work. And a couple times I thought it was my equipment, my programming equipment that couldn't match it up, and I'm doing something wrong. And I do the research and I, dig and find out, oh, this is just some cheap knockoff, or even though it looks right, it's the wrong, I don't know, transponder ID or whatever it is. So that's definitely been a challenge for me. So I feel like, if I'm going to stock my own stuff, I really got to do my homework on what goes to what, right? Or is there some resource that you can use for that?
There are some manuals that you can purchase. Man, the names are escaping me. There's a couple. I know there's some manuals you can buy. They're a couple $100 each.
Okay.
But I'll be honest with you, man. I've never bought any. What I do is so this is that's actually a very great question. A very important tool that I think is very important to us. It's the VVDI Key Tool Max. It actually reads and sniffs transponder frequencies. So, for example, like you can even do an antenna test. You can see if the actual antenna is working. You put in any key in it, it'll tell you what type of chip it is. It's a great tool, and it's perfect for that situation. Like, let's say, for example, you go in, and Honda's very popular for this. You can have the same key, looks the same, but the frequencies are different, and it will not work. It will never take.
Yeah, I've had that happen on a Honda. I'm like, these are the same keys, but they obviously weren't, because it wouldn't work.
Correct. So and there's years where they change frequencies and they will not work. And so what I normally do is I'll if I have an issue like that, right? Well, first of all, I've had that situation before, and I just tell them flat out, listen, man, we can't guarantee. I don't guarantee your keys, man. If I come out, it doesn't work, you're still paying me, man. Mm-hmm. And I said, because there's a possibility you got the wrong key. Oh no, it's the right one. You go out there and bam, you're right. So what I've done is so if I'm in that situation, I cut it, program it doesn't go. Okay, I take a few minutes, I read it with the key tool. I look at my transponder number. I'm like, okay, cool. Now I go to, like, for example, Midwest Keyless has a great app. You can just look up the vehicle, and then it'll give you all the options, the different keys, and it'll tell you which car took this one. That's a great resource in itself right there. Or, like I said, you can buy one of these books that you can find on any of the locksmith suppliers sells reference manuals when it comes to keys.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of them, but I think they're like $300.
I think I saw somebody on Facebook talking about some app you could get on your phone too.
I'm pretty sure it's the Midwest Keyless app. It's
okay.
And you can even order them from there too. It's a great app. It really is.
Okay. So I've run into this a couple times last, 6 months or so. Chrysler keys. One of them was the Fobic style where there's no actual blade. And then the other one actually did have a blade, but it had the remote built into the blade, where they would replace the WIN module or the skim module, whatever you call it, and the old keys would not program to the vehicle. And so I ended up having to get new keys in both situations. Is there a workaround around that or something you can do? I mean, because technically their old key is still good. You know, it still functions or it still turns the lock cylinder, but I couldn't get it to program to the new module.
So even though people have told me that I'm wrong, I'll be honest with you. Every WCM and every skim module I've ever done on any Chrysler, I've always needed a new key. So I just tell them off the bat, you need a new key.
Okay.
If
There's been times where I haven't run it, like it's the old one works, but obviously there's been times when it doesn't work. So I don't know what the deal is.
All of them that I've ever done, I've always needed a key. All of them.
Okay.
Because Chryslers, and what I've been told is Chrysler keys are one-time use. You know, like there's not like Nissans or Fords where you can just, you know, reprogram to different vehicles. No, these are just one and done. I can't tell you about the remote head keys, like the little triangle keys.
Yeah.
With a blade. I can't answer that question because I'm just telling you need a new one. I will err to the side of no, they're not reusable. Okay. But I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure there's somebody else out there going to tell me I'm wrong, and it's possible. Now the Fabic keys, those the VVDI tool can actually renew those.
Oh, really?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's it's a little bit of work where you solder a couple wires on there and then you can just renew it and it'll take to any other car. Those will work. That you can do with that tool.
Gotcha. So as long as what your charge is less than or equal to a new key, you could probably charge for that when you go out there then.
Yeah. I mean, I would trust those Fabic keys are they're pricey, man. So it may be worth it for a couple minutes of your time, charging them like $50 or whatever. But because you can find them cheap all day long on Amazon, but I promise you those things don't work. Those the aftermarket Fabic keys are absolutely garbage.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I've been. Heck, I was out at a 19 Buick Encore or something, and this guy was trying to do his own key. And boy, he really went through it. He tried to do like some manual process that he read online, and he messed something up because this thing now would not start with the original key. He was just trying to add one. And so I tried to add this key, and it was not happening. And it looked identical. And we actually cracked it open. We looked at the board, and it looked very similar. But I was like, dude, this ain't happening. So he paid the I don't know, it was like $300 for a new one from GM. And then that one worked. That one just went right through the program. So yeah, these aftermarket keys you get off of eBay or Amazon, boy, it's just rolling the dice.
Yeah, you have better luck with the keys from, like ILM, UHS, IKS, AKS.
But your average shop or customer is probably not buying them from there, I would guess.
Exactly, and you do have better luck. But I will always say, man, it's definitely better just to go OEM all the way.
Yeah,
because you do, even with them, you'll still run into some sort of fitment issue. You can still run into something that it'll make you go nuts. So it really always is better to go OEM. And like the late model GMs too. I have seen a couple of the aftermarket ones not be right. I don't know what it is either. I generally just try to steer them away from doing it because, like I said, late model stuff. I'm in the programming range. I charge for like an actual programming event, so it's not going to be cheap. So, and I go out there, they're still getting charged. So,
yeah. So
I basically
better have the right stuff.
I actually sell them. I actually just sell them the OEM key myself. I just tell them, hey, this is what I'll charge you, key and everything.
Well, and that's probably the best way to handle it. I will sell you the key. I can guarantee it's going to work. Here's the cost. Otherwise. Have fun.
And a lot of these places have access to overnight shipping too, man. So just give them an extra day, and your overnight is very, very competitive, man. They really do a good job of getting you these keys quickly.
So you mentioned the Key Tool Max. I had just gone through a quick list of tools that work with either key program or immobilizer. I think we talked about the IM, the Autel stuff. I've heard people talk about the AutoPad Pro, or I don't know if it's AutoPad Lite or what. There's a couple different versions.
There's a couple of them. There's a Pro and there's a Lite. AutoPad.
Do you know anything about those? I have not used either one.
I have the Lite.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the Lite, and Pedro has the Pro. I'll be honest with you, man. I'm a creature of habit. I bought it and I've only used it for Fords.
Okay.
Which is, something I don't really recommend either, because it's anytime you do anything. So for example, I'm sorry, the biggest part I enjoyed about the APP is that on a lot of the older Fords, it bypasses the 10-minute wait.
Okay.
So, it's a neat feature, like, hey man, 10 minutes is 10 minutes, dude. I gotta go. So, but anytime you do anything backdoor, there's always that situation where you end up, breaking a cluster or something. So, buyer beware.
Gotcha.
But that's realistically the main reason why I picked it up. But it's a very competent tool. I mean, I've programmed a bunch of different. The user, it's fairly inexpensive, but it's not as intuitive as the Auto in terms of the user interface.
Gotcha.
But it's a powerful tool. The bigger tool has a lot of EEPROM stuff, man. A lot of readers, a lot of different options, files in the tool. It also has, for example, it has a lot of Toyota files as well in it.
It just comes with the tool
files.
The tool with those files. That's
right.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a good tool. I mean, it's definitely not my to-go, but that just may be my own, preference. But like I said, my 608 is my go-to tool for pretty much anything. It's just such a versatile tool. I do Diag. I've never used it. I used the J-Box for it a few times, but I've grown to have most of the OEM interfaces now, so I don't even use it anymore for J. But it's a great J-Box, man. I mean, it's I've never had any issues. I mean, shoot, I think I said it in one of the podcasts that I did an Infinity PCM using Nerds.
Oh yeah.
with that J-Box.
Okay.
So I'm pretty happy with the purchase. It's probably been one of my best purchases.
Yeah, I have the 508. Just because I bought that because I didn't need the diagnostic side of things, but I've loved the immobilizer side of that tool. And then I got the XP 400, so I can do some of the programming stuff with it, which I'm still learning. But the functionality of the tool has just been awesome. And yeah, it's weird. So that one will skip the 10-minute wait on certain Fords, but not other Fords. What? And like I did one today and it went the whole 10 minutes and then it told me it failed. I'm like, oh, come on. Couldn't you just tell me it failed right away? And I would have used ideas.
That's so you have an APP?
What's that?
Do you have an APP or are you talking about the IM?
The IM, the 508. I was using that.
I've had bad luck with Fords with the Auto, man. I don't even really.
I did a Fusion the other day and it just went boop, parameter reset. Yeah. I was like, sweet. And like you say, 10 minutes doesn't seem like a big deal when you can go do something else. But when I'm at a job and I can't do anything else, 10 minutes is a long time.
Yeah, no. So I haven't used their new functions. So maybe I should start playing with it a little bit more. But from what I remember now, which ones, it's usually the ones where security is stored in the cluster.
That's the one that
you can do.
Oh, okay.
But if they're stored like in the PCM, then no. Or if they're stored in the BCM, like some of the newer Fords, then I don't take this as a grain. Take it with a grain of salt. But I'm pretty sure that it's just a Fords that have the security, the pads in the cluster.
Okay.
That it'll bypass the 10-minute wait.
Gotcha.
And there's an array of tools. I just feel like people need to do their research and see what fits what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I mean, for your average technician, I guess that's a question, is how far you want to go with this. I mean, if you're already calling in a mobile programming guy, maybe this isn't something you want to look at, but if you're doing some of this stuff, boy, you'll need
you'll need some tool at least that's going to function on the brands that you service the most. It's going to make your life a lot easier, I think, to have have some options, even if you're not cutting keys, but programming stuff once you get them cut.
Yeah, no, I agree, and there is a lot out there. I mean, but anybody who's on social media and stuff, there's a lot of information on these Facebook groups, man. A lot of trolls, of course, but there's definitely people out there willing to help, and it's definitely a good time this is the best time, in my opinion, to jump into the VSP side or the locksmithing side of the industry. There's so much help. I mean, I've always been kind of like the type to learn on my own. So, I have a network of friends that I'm learning from, and they learn from me as well. And that's also very, very, very important to do networking, and it'll actually help you with the fear of doing keys or getting into this type of stuff, because I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you're gonna learn what to do and what not to do, and sometimes it's not gonna be pretty, but it's the nature of things.
Yeah, having a group of people to fall back on for like, help, I messed this up, what do I do? That's it's good to have some people in your corner for sure.
Definitely, man.
But yeah, all the information out there, boy, just do some searching, do some Googling or some searching in some groups, and it's amazing. The Facebook group, the search bar that they added to Facebook groups, I mean, that's a powerful tool that I don't think a lot of people even realize exists.
No, not at all, man. You can tell by some of these posts.
Yeah.
Which is the best scan tool, bro? Type it in the stupid search bar, man. This topic has been beat to death.
Yeah, it's not like it takes a whole lot of effort to do that too. Like search something.
My favorite posts are, I have $500. Which is the best cancel I should buy? And I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Or like the what's the best all-in-one scan tool? And I'm just like, geez, man, you're in the wrong industry, homie.
Yeah.
Or it's like the SI post, like, oh, what's the best? I can only afford one service, one SI subscription. Which one is it going to be? And I remember before I knew better, I actually got into a Facebook argument with somebody in one of the groups about. I'm like, you need them all, and some.
Yeah, even all of them probably won't do it for you. At one point,
I had all data Mitchell and Identifix. And still, like, sometimes I find myself buying Toyota or buying Honda or buying Nissan, Ford, GM. And I remember the argument was, well, I can only afford one. I'm like, well, do you work without electricity? Do you work without, water? Do you work without heat? No. Well, it's the same thing, dude. If you cannot afford to not have them. You have to have service information. I don't care what you're doing.
Yep.
One of my mobile customers too. He wanted me to try to bail him out on a 2005 S430. They slapped a used trans in it, and of course it doesn't shift. And so he's telling me, hey, what do I do? Blah blah blah. I'm like, well, I mean, there's possibilities, but the official procedure is you need a new conductor plate. Or get a reman one, and I can SC encode it for you, and it's X amount of money. He's like, yeah, but the customer's pissed because this and that. There's nothing you can do. I'm like, well, why don't you just look it up in information? And he thought I was talking shit, but I didn't remember that he asked me the same question.
Oh, okay.
When I did a programming job, and then he asked me about service information. Which one do you recommend? I said, you need all of them. And then he's going back and forth. Oh no, but it's expensive. Blah blah. I'm like, well, you can't. I mean, you need them. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, bro. You need service information. So when I told him this, I'm like, he thought I was just mocking him. Because I had said that previously, and I'm like, did you look it up on service information? He's like, well, no, because I don't have any. And I know what you're gonna tell me. I'm just like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, whatever, dude, it's the truth, man. If you want to take it that way, man, it's the truth. There's nothing I can help you with, man. If anything, take the old valve body out and put in the new one. But the problem is your issue most likely is the valve body. So your conductor plate is junk. You just need a new one, bro. I don't know what more. I mean, there are some options, but the procedure is you need to replace it. And if you would have had service information, you could have told us before you took the car down. And they tried swapping it over because the customer was mad and he broke it. And now it doesn't come.
Oh,
hey, man, it sounds like a you problem, bro.
Yeah. Boy, well, I've definitely seen a number of shops create their own issues for sure.
To save customers money.
That's the thing. And I get it. You want to treat people right, but your first goal should be fixing the car. Let's fix the car, and then maybe if you can save them some money.
I got into not an altercation, but like a verbal back and forth with another trans shop because he stuck me in the middle of an argument between the vehicle owner and himself.
I don't want to talk to the customer.
I'm like, dude, I don't talk to your customers, man. I'm like, but it looks like the customer was another shop, so the guy was just kind of going back and forth. So finally, like, because I'm standing there and I'm like, hey, man, am I doing this or not? So what it was, to give you some backstory, it was a newer S-Class. I guess the guy had did this before where he swapped something in it or whatever. But when he took this conductor plate down or this valve body down, it was totally different because it's newer, and ended up getting a reman one. What he didn't know is that these reman ones, they're a real piece of shit. Like, they have coating in them, and you have to do all these extra steps, or you have to get the solenoid strategy through like companies like Blue Link, and it's a lot of money to program them. So when he told me it was just coating for it, like he replaced it, I told him, is it a new one? He's like, yeah. But when I sell you a new one, I would hope you as a transmission guy knew that I was talking about a new one from Mercedes, not a new for you from Chang Wang's, remanufacturers out in California or something. So I get there and I got all these configuration errors and stuff like that. And I pretty much told him, hey man, I don't think I can help you here, dude. There's something wrong with this module. It's flagging, all these codes, and that for me, from my experience, usually means that the coding in the module is wrong. So that means I don't even know what this came off of. I can try the SCN event, but it's going to cost you, dude, because it's my time and everything. And that's when the customer came over, because I guess he had him come there to see them pay me. He didn't want to pay me out of his pocket. That's when he comes over, and then they start arguing. And I'm listening to this, and the 10 minutes go by, and I'm like, "Hey, man, if we're not doing this, bro, then I'm out, because I got stuff to do, bro."
Yeah.
And then then the guy's like, "Oh, well, how are you gonna charge me if it's not gonna work?" I'm like, "Well, that's why I'm telling you right now. You want me to do it or not, man? Because I gotta go." And now he's getting loud with the other guy, "Cause see, man, this guy told me one price, and he tells me another, and blah blah blah." And then he says to me, "Man, can't you do anything?" I said, "No, man, this ain't my problem.
Right.
Well, matter of fact, this is your problem. And matter of fact, the customer is right. He should be mad at you." He's like, "How is this my fault?" I said, "You're the trans guy, homie." Like, I was in the ghetto, man. So I started getting all ghetto too, man. "You're the trans guy, bro. Your fault, honestly, was not telling him to go get this thing from Mercedes. You knew better than this. Why are you trying to save him money?" I said it to his face too. What are you trying to save him money for? And he's like, "Bro, he didn't even tell me. He was just like, this is how much it's going to cost you." And I said, "Okay, cool, fix it." He's like, "I'm a mechanic too. I have my own shop. I just don't do transmissions." So I actually ended up helping the other guy, the owner of the vehicle, actually fix this situation. I ended up helping them out with it, like down the road, because I did the coding, and of course it failed. I collected my money and I left.
Yeah.
So I don't understand it. I really don't. I never will.
Well, I think a lot of us in this field have figured out early on that trying to help somebody getting the cheap part. Let's put a used transmission in or something, just burns us as the person fixing the car. And then, I don't know, hopefully quickly you realize that that's not the way to go. You don't want to put your name on something like that or remand or whatever it is. And
yeah, I don't
just do it right. But boy, I'll tell you what, being mobile, I so enjoy dealing with the shop as opposed to dealing with the actual customer. Now, in your situation, that obviously wasn't the case, but most of the time, boy, it is so much nicer dealing with someone who understands the industry as opposed to someone who has no idea about it. So
I'll tell you this. As I've gone mobile and had bad experiences with some shops, I liken this to, this is my analogy of mobile versus retail. You come into my shop as a retail customer, I feel like I need to talk to you like a child. Oh, this is what we have to do. This is why we have to do it. This is why we have to charge you, et cetera, et cetera. When I go to somebody's shop, I feel like I'm talking to a teenager because it's the same thing. I'm still talking to a child, but this child talks back to me because he thinks he knows more than I do. And then it's just like, well, then why'd you call me, homie? If you know more than I do, what'd you call me? Oh, I don't have that tool. Okay, here you go, bro. Fix it.
Yeah. Let me see your tool.
So that's my comparison. I feel like they both have their separate sets of issues. The issue I've been having is misdiagnosis and them not wanting to pay. I've had a few shops where they didn't want to pay for the programming event because the car didn't start. And I'm like, hey man,
yeah,
it's not I did my job and
right.
prove it. I'm like, well, here it is. There's no IMO codes. Your car's not starting.
Yeah.
Well, what's wrong with it? Like, aren't you the mechanic? Got me the diagnosis, this amount of money. And so, like I said, usually I've never not gotten paid, but it just makes you like kind of like, I don't want to deal with this. And I get I don't know if you've ever gotten that, but I get that a lot, man. I get that a lot.
I don't get it very often. So I guess I consider myself lucky there is, most of the because that happens all the time where I go, I mean, honestly, that's where I get most of my diagnostic business is I get my foot in the door with programming and I'll program something and it doesn't fix it. And I'm like, do you want me to figure it out? And then they're most of the time, not always, but most of the time they're happy to just say, yeah, I'm done with this car. Just tell me what's wrong with it. And then I charge them for the programming and the diagnostic. But there have been times where that's not the case. We're like, were you sure you did the programming right? Well, how do you know? I'm like, well, it said it passed. Here's the screen. Here's the printout. That's it. It's from GM,
Yeah, it's so sad, dude, that you have to actually have all these redundancies in place to just have proof that, yeah, I did my job.
Right.
It's a headache too, man. That's the part that I hated about mobile. It's that, and what really irritates me is just these shops and mechanics. I consider them heartless to a point, man, because like me, for example, in my shop, I don't do exhaust work. Like I don't specialize in exhaust work. I don't have a pipe bender. I don't have a welder. I'll replace components, but most of the times around me, when the rust belt, this is cheaper and easier to just get somebody a muffler shop to just custom do some exhaust for you, and you're done, right? Well, I don't do that. I don't know how to weld. I'm not gonna learn on your car. So it's the same thing I tell these guys. I'm like, if you don't know how to diagnose a vehicle, then why are you offering it?
Right.
So in that aspect, I get really frustrated because it's like, it's the reason why our industry is in the shape that it is. And then I get frustrated with myself because I'm like, I'm helping you to stay open.
That is
definitely a catch-22, man.
Yeah. It's okay. And boy, that is a tough one. It's been talked about by other people before are the mobile technicians just propping up shops that should fail? And yeah, in a way, okay. I went to a shop today that replaced the PCM and I programmed it, and it still had all the circuit codes that were there before, and it was a fuse. Okay. You know, I know that they charged the customer for the PCM and the programming and whatever else that went into that car. I know they did, and they're going to keep on doing it tomorrow. It definitely, boy, it is tough to see, you know, what people, you know, shops charge for diagnostics out there.
That's my problem. I don't have, my shops don't. And then my problem with mobile, I got to a point this summer, I wanted to stop doing mobile diag because I fix. Sometimes I get there, it's junkyard parts, it's new junk parts, it's or I diagnose it and I tell them it's this. They call me back and they're like, "Oh, my part's no good." I go back over there because now I feel like an asshole because I misdiagnosed their car. And guess what? It's their junkyard part that doesn't work. And now it's an issue because I want to charge for my trip again.
Right.
You see, so that's been my issue. And it got, like I said, I had like a 3-week span where it was just like, I'm tired, man. I fired the shop because I went and diagnosed the bad fuse box on a cruise that wouldn't start. It was the ground side of the relay wasn't contacting the actual starter relay right. No MO codes. He wanted me to give him a key.
Okay.
You know, I started with a scan, nothing. So, okay, do you have another issue? You want me to diagnose it, or you still want this key? Okay, no, just diagnose it. I'll pay for the diagnosis. Okay, I found that, got my money, and I left. He calls me pissed off, and hey, man, the car still doesn't start. You know, I paid you, and it's still not, like, he's, you know, all right, man, no problem. Matter of fact, I'll cancel my last appointment, and I'm going to go there right now. I get there, junkyard part, and again, I start with a scan, a bunch of circuit codes and stuff. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So I go back, I yank the starter relay, and it looks like he found this part on the bottom of Lake Michigan. Like, it's green, it's corroded. So I'm like, where's the other fuse box, man? He gives me the fuse box. I take that relay, I put it in, I go in and turn it over, the car cranks and don't start. I said, hey, man, I got this car to start yesterday. I grounded this relay, it started. He's like, what else did you do? He's like, I don't know. Well, your fuse book must be bad. And he just threw his hands in the air and walked away from me. So I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? He said, well, you said that was wrong with it. So I start, like, I take another few minutes, I cool off, and I, like, press it. I don't know why I pressed the fuse box, and then I heard a bunch of clicks. So then I grabbed the screws. You know how GM has those long screws for the fuse boxes? They were all loose. I call him over, hey, man, this isn't tightened, bro. He's like, oh, I left it loose because I knew I had to take it back off because I didn't think you fixed it right. And I said, hey, man, I go, you're going to have to pay me for my trip, bro.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you mean? I said, your part is bad. I go, you made me come out again. I canceled an appointment to come here. I go, you need to pay me again. And he just refused. So I said, don't call me again. And I just left. I actually should have left with the keys, man, but I don't have the heart to do that. I was just like, whatever, you're going to need me. And yeah, dude, that guy called me all summer long. And I'm like, nope. I don't. He's like, oh, I'll pay you what nope. Keep it.
Yeah, it is tough to see what's going on out there in a lot of shops. And I guess here's my thing is, obviously, I think we all know that not all shops are like that, right? There are good shops with really good technicians. They're probably not the one calling us as much, you know, maybe occasionally, but not as much. So we really get to see the bottom. But boy, I'll tell you what, these bottom shops are freaking busy. Their lots are full of people who want their cars fixed. So, oh man.
Today I had an employee that used to work with me, and he works for a shop down the street. He called me over to look at an Equinox, and it had a regulator, it had a high pressure fuel pump regulator circuit code, it had exhaust codes. In my head, I'm like, man, these people probably put an engine in this the wrong one. I said, all right, man, I'll run over there and check it out. Parking lot's full. he's like, man, we're super busy. And my shop's kind of dead right now.
Okay.
Mobile stuff is fairly busy, but my shop is kind of on the dead side. But anyway, I look at it and I go, all right, start my scanning, a bunch of codes, and anybody mess with it? He's like, no, the boss just had to call you because he didn't want to waste time. Okay, so I go into it. I hear the regulator. I hear the pump whining. It was whining. I look at fuel pressure. It was like 2,000 psi. I'm like, well, what's going on here? So I put my hand on it, and I accidentally like moved the connector. It was halfway in. But I plug it in. I do a couple more testing. So it really just needed the what's it called? It's escaping me right now. The actuator solenoids.
Sure.
The exhaust one was stuck and the regulator was unplugged. That's it. That's all it needed. I was there for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's when it's stuff like, and they were happy. The guy was happy as can be.
Mm-hmm.
So, I you take the good with the bad, but yeah, the guy was busy as heck.
Yeah.
But we would never call nobody for something like that. I mean, it's just visual. Like I said, I popped the hood, I put my hand on it, it was in my hand. So it's, like yeah. Wow. It's just.
So I go back to my days in Firestone, and if I would have called in, a specialist for something like that, I think I would have gone home and like questioned my career. Like, should I really be doing this? I called in the guy for a loose ground or a fuse or, and I guess it's not to shit on anybody that's doing this and learning. Obviously you got to grow, but man, I don't know, take some pride in the fact that you call yourself a technician and put some effort into this. Go learn something, take some training. Maybe if you're listening to this podcast, you are, but oh man, it's crazy.
It's crazy out there, bro. It really is, man. But in the meantime, yeah, I feel like I'm doing the industry the service. I really do, but at the same time, man, I gotta get paid.
That's right. There is a lot of money to be made if you can fix cars.
Yeah.
And you can do electrical and computer stuff. People will pay you.
Yeah. So to everybody that's out there, man, that wants to get into locksmithing and stuff, man, I suggest you look up Isaac. Or you can look up, David Friend at ILM. Those two guys are really awesome. They'll help you out. At the end of the day, man, I think that, we all should be in this together. A lot of people will agree with me. And I promise you, man, I'm going to get shit for some of the stuff I said here on the podcast. But at the end of the day, man, things don't change, things die. So, I think we should move forward. And, when it comes to the actual key stuff, man, I'm telling you, it's you'll learn real quick what's what works for you. So don't be afraid, man. If you guys are mobile and want to get into keys, man, you should do it.
Cool.
And also the EPROM class, man, I don't know if that class is sold out, but there's a couple of dates coming up, man. So you guys should reach out to Mike Christopherson or Pedro De La Torre, man. Dave, that first class that I went to for that Mike hosted in South Dakota, man, it was game changer for me, man. I knew a lot of this stuff. I just didn't have the confidence. I walked away with confidence. There's no price tag on that.
Yeah. Well, I can say I haven't even been to the class yet, but all the stuff, they send you a kit beforehand and you do all this work and there's a packet with all this information and online training and you do some soldering and stuff beforehand. I already feel more confident about it and I haven't been to the class yet. So I'm pumped for in a couple of weeks when I go.
Yeah, man. Unfortunately, something came up with me. So I can't make it. I don't know. A lot of my Facebook friends know my old man passed away. So unfortunately, times.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thanks. Times got a little tough for me, man. So hopefully, if you like the class and you want round two, we're working on hopefully having a class here in Chicago sometime in the early spring. So maybe you come back on down, man.
I might just drive on down there. That's a short haul for me.
All right, man. Come on through, man. Well, we got you here.
Cool.
All right, that's going to do it for this one. I'd like to give Tomi one more big thank you for coming on the show with me today. Really enjoyed that talk and learned quite a bit, as obviously I'm working my way towards getting more involved into keys than I have been in the past. But I also like to thank everybody for listening and remind you to check out the show notes for this episode, and I'll have links to a lot of the tools that we discussed and talked about in case you'd like to go purchase some of these for yourself. But other than that, let's get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time.